What's going on, guys? It has been an absolutely insane morning for the Ottawa Senators. First off, they lost the first round pick because of some illegal trade activity not disclosing. Evgeny Dadonov's no trade clause led to a disaster in 2022 when the Vegas Golden Knights went to go trade him to the Anaheim Ducks. Then, in part because of that, Pierre Dorion out the door. See you later. Steve Staios gets the job after being hired a couple months ago as like a president CEO role. We're going to dive into it right now. I'm going to give you my thoughts on what happened, what the punishment was, what I think of Pierre stepping down, Steve Staios, Peter Chiarelli maybe. So let's dive into it. First off, let's talk about what exactly went down. What exactly went down was back in 2021, Dadonov was traded from Ottawa to Vegas. When they were on the call completing the trade, Vegas asked directly, were you aware of any no trade clauses? They were told no by the Ottawa Senators management team, even though he did have a no trade clause, and his agent provided proof that he indeed submitted a previous no trade list to Ottawa. So obviously, Vegas wants to know if he needs a no trade clause, if down the line, which happened, if his cap hit was too high, if they could dump him to some rebuilding team like the Anaheim Ducks were in 2022. So fast forward at the deadline, 2022, Donov's not really pulling his weight. He's making like $5 million. They want to get out of that cap hit, so they send him to the Ducks for I believe it was a second round pick. It goes through. All the insiders tweeted out. I think the teams might have even tweeted it out. But then obviously Dadonov and his agent go, we have Anaheim on the no trade list. What are you doing? You don't know about our no trade clause list. So the deal gets canceled. The deal gets scrapped. Everybody assumed in the moment that Vegas was just trying to pull one over on the NHL. And if Dadonov, that was not the case, because obviously going back to this, Vegas had no clue because Ottawa told them there was no trade clause. So they investigate for over almost 2 years. I don't know why this took so long. I understand other things like the Team Canada or the Chicago Blackhawks. That takes a while. I don't know why this took 2 years to figure out, and we'll get into that. Andlauer was not happy about that. But today they finally come down with their ruling that there was some illegal activity. Obviously, Ottawa did not disclose that, and they get a first-round pick taken away. They could either do it in 2024, 2025, 2026, basically whenever it's going to be not that good of a first-round pick, even though they run the risk if in 2026, say the Ottawa Senators stink and it's a top 10 pick. That'd be a disaster. But first-round pick, man, that's crazy. Remember, the Arizona Coyotes got a first and a second taken away from working out players during COVID pre-draft, which again is a big no-no, but that was a hard punishment. Meanwhile, Chicago Blackhawks got nothing. This comes for us, Rachel Dorier, friend of the show, a mutual on social media, failing to acknowledge a player's trade protections cost the Sens more draft capital than it cost the Chicago Blackhawks for covering up sexual assault before recommending said job offender from working with teenagers. That is really tough to square. Super harsh on Ottawa. And yeah, I mean, we can all agree that Chicago Blackhawks, they should have been fined way more. They should have been trade capital taken away. And as a result, it just looks like a horrible league, a horrible message that, yeah, you didn't disclose this, which is wrong, which Ottawa should be punished for this. This was a disaster for both of those teams, the Ducks and the Vegas Golden Knights. I thought they had a done deal based on false knowledge. So in looking at this, they should have been fined. They should have been punished. A first-round pick, I can even see that making sense because it's such an easily avoidable mistake, and it kind of makes you think maybe Ottawa knew about it and they just wanted to lie. Maybe Ottawa knew, there's no way they're going to trade the Dadonov down the line, so we can just lie about this and have this deal go through. So in looking at it, I don't have a problem with the first-round pick. I do think it is harsh. I think it should only be a second-round pick because if you're Ottawa, that could end up being a 17th overall pick. That's a legit punishment. So in looking at this, it definitely stinks for the Ottawa Senators, and Michael Andlauer was not happy about it. Isn't overly pleased about being penalized for a first-round pick. Keeps inheriting it, and I don't blame him. This should have been handed down the summer of 2022. This happened in March of 2022. I don't know why this didn't happen sooner. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense. But as a result, this was kind of the final straw for Pierre Dorion. You look at it. He's been there for, I think, 8 seasons in total. They missed the playoffs 7 out of those seasons, which, yes, there was a rebuild, but they should have made it last year. They should have made it the year before. 7 out of 8 seasons was simply unacceptable, and he finally had some accountability. So that's always good to see when looking at that. And Andlauer said that much as well. We're negligent, which embarrassed the league and pissed off 2 other hockey clubs. And as a result, Pierre Dorion resigned and was relieved of his duties as GM. Staios is the new interim GM. And this is the right call. Yeah, Pierre Dorion, this much of a mistake is worth a first-round pick, and it is going to get you fired, especially when you consider the Shane Pinto disaster, bunch of other stuff, the DeBrincat failure of a trade and having to pedal back on that, getting Kubalik in a first. That's not that good of a package. You weren't able to convince him to stay. The Pierre Dorion era is really weird for me, man. And I tweeted that much out. I said, it's so weird because he killed top 5 picks. Stützle, superstar. Sanderson, budding superstar, probably going to end up being a top 20 defenseman. And Tkachuk, already point per game. And he even won on Eric Carr. Usually you lose when you trade a superstar to another team because the prospects don't pan out. He got Stützle. He got Norris from that deal. But basically everything else went wrong. When you look at the DeBrincat trade, obviously, when you look at the goalies that he brought in over the previous years, they have not worked out at all. He's not been able to build a consistent contender. The Matt Murray trade, for example, or signing, that was horrible. There's just so many things he was never able to build the team around. Up until this year, they did not have a functional defense core for the most part. The Chicken trade was definitely a good one, but when looking at what he did over the past 3 to 4 years, he never turned this team into a legit contender. Well, I thought this year they were going to be really good, but the results never showed. So like when you get penalized for a first round pick under new ownership, you're not going to be like, yeah, let's just give them one more year. This year is going to be the year. I still think they're going to make the playoffs, but like it was time to move on from Pierre Dorion. Where do they go from here? Peter Chiarelli's apparently making the round. So Steve Staios right now is going to be the interim GM, and he had success with Andlauer at the Hamilton Bulldogs in the OHL. They won an OHL title, I believe. So this guy doesn't have NHL experience, but he's been an executive for a while. He's Andlauer's right-hand guy in terms of hockey management. I think that's pretty solid. Obviously played in the league for a while, played for my New York Islanders. So I kind of like Staios as the guy right now. Then maybe this summer you look into getting a new full-time general manager if Staios is going to stay in that like above president CEO role, because right now you really can't do an in-depth search looking for that guy. Mid-season, guys are working. They're not going to be interviewing for jobs. And just overall, you need to get a guy in right now. Wait until the offseason. There's not maybe a couple deadline moves you have to do, but if they miss the playoffs, you just go balls to the wall in a search in April. So right now for the Ottawa Senators, it's not good. I wouldn't say the season's over. Again, Dadonov, it doesn't affect them really this year. It affects their future, definitely. They just need to get Shabbat back. They just need to get Pinto back. But just a very bad look for the organization who has been through so much this past week between the Shabbat, Pinto, and now this. I thought it was going to be the year. I still do think that they have a decent chance of making the playoffs, but my God, they are, without a doubt, the laughing stock of the league right now. Just straight up. They kind of are, and as a result, it's not looking good. But let me know in the comments, what do you think about this? Do you think this punishment was too harsh on the Ottawa Senators? I have a hard time feeling bad for them, but I want to hear from you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.